As it's now the month of February, we're faced with the possibility of a Nintendo Direct. As usual with Nintendo Direct speculation, there's a wide variety of possible new games we could see revealed. Today, rather than talking about predictions, I want to instead imagine the ideal Nintendo Direct. What games would make the upcoming Direct as exciting as possible, all while staying realistic and within the realm of possibility? First, we have to consider one of the big, currently announced Nintendo games that doesn't yet have a release date. The ideal Nintendo Direct absolutely shows off Metroid Prime 4, and I'm talking about a full-on trailer and release window, not just the number 4 floating out somewhere in space. But whether or not we actually see Metroid Prime 4, I do hope we at least get remasters of the other Prime games. Metroid Prime Remastered was the big surprise from last February's Direct, and that remaster was incredible. It would be great to see the other 2 Prime games get the same treatment. How exactly would that be handled though? The idea of a double pack featuring both Prime 2 and 3 doesn't make much sense to me. Unless you're going to repackage Metroid Prime Remastered as well and make it a trilogy bundle, why would you make a Prime double pack with arguably the best entry in the series left out of it? What I think makes more sense is giving it the Pikmin 1 and 2 treatment. Drop Prime 2 and 3 digitally at the same time, and then maybe announce a Metroid Prime Trilogy physical collector's edition to arrive later. My dream way to end this Direct? We get the announcement of digital versions of Metroid Prime 2 and 3 Remastered releasing that day on Nintendo eShop. Then that would be followed by a first look trailer for Metroid Prime 4 with a 2024 release window. This would set us up with the ideal scenario. All 3 Metroid Prime games looking better than ever and readily available on Switch for anyone looking to catch up on the series before 4. Next, I want to talk about a well-known Nintendo franchise that's been absent since last generation. We're coming down to the wire here, and it's now becoming a question if main series Star Fox is going to come to Nintendo Switch at all, outside of the older games on NSO, of course. In a year already filled with so many remakes and remasters, a new Star Fox game could be a strong reveal for an upcoming Nintendo Direct. It will be interesting to find out if, after such a long dormancy, Nintendo sees a Star Fox game as viable in the modern market. Last year, Pikmin 4 proved that series could come back. And just a few years prior, Metroid Dread proved the same for 2D Metroid. So if at any point during the past decade, Miyamoto and co put a plan into action to follow up Star Fox Zero, now could be the time we see it. While I think a new game in the series is the ideal scenario, there is also a nice back catalog of Star Fox games we could see return in the form of a remake or remaster. Of all the possible choices, I think Assault is the best candidate. It has a nice mix of traditional ship combat and on-foot segments. Plus, it fits nicely into this recent trend of GameCube remasters. I've heard people say that Nintendo's 2024 lineup so far seems like a wind down as they gear up for next gen. If that is indeed the case, then that could mean that it's also prime time to reveal a remake or remaster from the Legend of Zelda series. I don't think it's crazy to imagine a Wind Waker or Twilight Princess HD being announced at this Direct. Either one of them could be a relatively easy port job over from Wii U, but it would still be more than enough to get people excited. There's also a possibility we could see a new 2D Zelda game, which is just as exciting as a prospect, if not more. A brand new 2D game could be hype enough to close out a Nintendo Direct, in the case we aren't seeing any Mario games or Prime 4. Or maybe we'll get another 2D Zelda remake, following in the footsteps of Link's Awakening, which was revealed in a February Direct several years back. Both of the Oracle games are fantastic candidates for a remake, but at the top of my personal wish list is a remake of the Minish Cap. That's just one of those ideas you know is going to be stunning. There's only one more possible Zelda announcement I'd rather see, and for me, the absolute dream scenario for Zelda this year would be a full remake of the first 3D Zelda, Ocarina of Time. There's absolutely no evidence to suggest this, but it is a popular rumor right now. So while I don't think it's going to happen, I'll be cheering for it anyway. We haven't seen a new Donkey Kong Country game since 2014, which is slightly depressing. The Tropical Freeze port we got at the beginning of the Switch's lifecycle was nice, but don't you think it's about time for something new? I think a new Donkey Kong Country, or even just a new Donkey Kong project in general, is very likely to be revealed at the next Nintendo Direct. With Tropical Freeze being the success that it was, I highly doubt Nintendo just rested on their laurels for so long. Something has to be in store for the series, we just don't know what it is. Ideally, we see a new Donkey Kong project revealed this month, which would put to bed any fears that a franchise as big as Donkey Kong will be skipping the Nintendo Switch. I did have one thought though. The launch of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, another 2D Nintendo mascot platformer, is still so recent and fresh on everyone's minds. Would it make sense to release a DKC game right after Wonder's huge success? My gut says yes, that would be fine, but it still would be a little odd to get two 2D platformers back to back after such a long drought. But maybe this means the next game in the Donkey Kong series won't be 2D at all. Maybe we'll get to see DK come back in a different style. If they were to switch gears with Donkey Kong, my best guess would be a Super Mario 3D World or Kirby and the Forgotten Land style game, where it still has that level clear structure, but the movement is done inside 3D environments. Save the open world sandbox stuff for the next Mario game, but give me a finely crafted 3D level clear Donkey Kong. If that's the case, then I can be a little more patient for the next country game. When I sought out to think about the ideal Nintendo Direct, my mind went straight to the top. That means we would see the next big 3D Mario or Mario Kart game. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized these reveals actually wouldn't be best suited for our next Direct. Of course, I want these games to come eventually, but I don't think our upcoming Nintendo Direct is the time. Rather than have 3D Mario or Mario Kart come to the current Switch, I'd instead like to see those games come to the successor, and that more than likely means they will skip this Direct. I do think 3D Mario is much more likely for the current Switch than Mario Kart though. It's been over half a decade since Odyssey, whereas we just had the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass finish up last year. There's been a much bigger drought for 3D Mario, which is why we'll probably see that game first. If Nintendo defies expectations and decides to reveal a current-gen Odyssey 2 or Bowser's Fury style game to close out this Nintendo Direct, I definitely wouldn't be too mad about it, but at that point, I'd really be wondering what they could possibly be saving as the next-gen launch title. I'm going to say right off the bat that this next idea is probably not happening, but remember, this is the ideal Nintendo Direct, not my predictions. The best case scenario is that Nintendo decides to show one of the final Dream Wii U ports, which is of course Xenoblade Chronicles X. A Switch port of Xenoblade Chronicles X has been rumored for quite a while now, but I'm not exactly sure why. However, as a key Nintendo studio, we know that Monolith Soft is always busy. We did just have a Xeno release in 2023 with Future Redeemed, and it's more than likely they'll need at least another year before they show off the next big thing. But there is always a chance that an X remaster was handed off to a different studio. In that case, it's certainly possible. I can just imagine the potential of a Xenoblade X port if it's put on a console with a large install base like the Switch's. It could be the second lease on life the game has always deserved, as I think it's seriously one of the most underrated games ever. Typically, the most exciting announcements in a Nintendo Direct are the new unannounced games, but an ideal Direct should also provide news on highly anticipated upcoming games. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door is a great example of that. Having a release date reveal in this Direct would be fantastic, and confirmation of any added content to the remake would blow the doors off. With the game looking pretty polished from pre-release footage, and since it's already been rated by the ESRB recently, I'd expect 2024's biggest currently announced game to come sooner rather than later. I'd say it's a safe bet for the next Direct. The Thousand-Year Door is yet another beloved title from the GameCube era getting remade or remastered on Nintendo Switch. There's kind of a common theme here. We've already talked about the Star Fox GameCube games and even Metroid Prime 2 Echoes remastered. Why don't we keep this train rolling and say that another GameCube remaster, F-Zero GX, will be part of the upcoming Direct as well. F-Zero 99 was pretty well received, so there's a chance a GX HD remaster could exceed expectations from a sales perspective. There are many other good GameCube remaster candidates out there too. For example, with Luigis Mansion 2 HD coming later this year, the next Direct could be a good place to slot in an HD version of the original Luigi's Mansion. They could even make it digital only and sell it at a cheaper price point. I don't think all of these remasters will happen, at least not in one single Direct, but I think the possibility of seeing either one in February is on the table. Moving on, I know it's not a Nintendo studio, but we need to talk about Square Enix, notably Team Asano, a key development partner who often works on Nintendo Switch exclusives. This team has already teased upcoming game announcements for 2024. You have to imagine Square will finally show more of Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, which is no doubt exciting. But what is Asano cooking? Often, this team will use a Nintendo Direct to announce their newest projects. For example, Triangle Strategy, Live Alive, and Octopath Traveler 2 most recently. The number one biggest thing they could do in an upcoming Direct is revive a very important game from the history of Nintendo consoles. A Chrono Trigger HD 2D remake would no doubt get people talking, and honestly, I feel like it's needed at this point. The original game isn't available on the SNES Online service, just like another classic Square game, Super Mario RPG, and look what happened with that recently. Right now, on the Nintendo Switch, the best RPG console ever, there's no way to play Chrono Trigger, and that's a real shame. Revealing a Chrono Trigger remake as Team Asano's next project would be the best possible way to right that wrong. And then there's Nintendo Switch Online, which has been on something of a hot streak lately. Most of the heavy hitters from past consoles are now available, and the GBA lineup keeps getting better with quality titles every few months. But now, in an upcoming Direct, I think it's about time to update the service. The best possible outcome would be GameCube games coming to NSO, but with so many GameCube remasters in the rumor mill right now, that's starting to look less likely. I think besides GameCube games, the next best outcome for NSO would probably be an official English localization of Mother 3 on the GBA service. Although I think if Nintendo was going to go through with those efforts, they would want to charge full price for it. With all that being said, the mystery around Nintendo's 2024 release schedule continues to heat up, and I'm counting the seconds until the Nintendo Direct to help shed some light on the situation. If you're like me and can't get enough Nintendo in your daily life, then subscribe for more Nintendo discussions like this. And speaking of NSO updates, here's a video I did about Nintendo DS games coming to the service. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.